What's up, fam? I'm Chappell, host of the Recap Kickback podcast, here for the exit interviews for Deal or No Deal Island Season 2. With me, my amazing co-host Jenny Autumn, and the most recently eliminated contestant from Deal or No Deal Island Season 2, Storm. Storm, what's up?
How is it going, guys? I'm just living my life in Austin now, no longer on the Bankers Island, trying to compete for money. So
Yeah, we got a lot of questions about what happened on last night's episode, so let's jump right in. Storm, do you normally go by Storm in your real life off of the island, or was this a choice to go by your middle name for the purposes of the show?
no, I go by this name everywhere. I think in the sixth grade I made a switch and never looked back.
Yeah, I won't reveal because I know there's a personal choice there. You keep that. But yeah, but no, I wasn't surprised like when I heard that because that's a really good reality TV name. Like Storm is a dope name. And I think a lot of people were paying attention to your time in the game just based on your name, but it didn't go so well, Storm. It didn't.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
happened?
I mean, honestly, before that temple, I thought things were going great, right? Like I'm talking to Dr. Will, right? We're coming up with a plan. He wants to get rid of CK, but he can't put her up because he made a deal with her. So, okay, let's just convince somebody else to try to get rid of her. Who would we want to get rid of that wouldn't mess with the family? Dixon's a perfect like person for that because the family doesn't even really like him. He was a shield at that point. And so I go up to Dixon. I talk to Dixon, tell him that CK doesn't really like him because of some other BS reason, get him to admit that he wants to give it to CK. So I'm thinking like this is money, easy. Like everything is taken care of. And I was in Temple, really excited for him, showing how happy I was that he was doing well, and then completely got blindsided at the end. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, Storm, I'm really curious because, as we saw from the rankings, you were kind of sitting pretty in the middle of things. Was there, obviously you felt good about Dixon being the one to face the banker. Was there anyone that was potentially going to play the banker that you were nervous about? That did you see anyone else trying to take you out?
Not at the time. I'd been working a pretty hard social game with everybody, right? Because like in my mind, I didn't want to form an alliance right off the bat because that kind of puts a little bit of a target on your back. You're like trying to work with people that makes everybody else enemies. I wanted to kind of find myself in an alliance. I also wanted to sandbag some of the competitions for the first like third because I didn't want to seem as a physical threat because people were already starting to talk about that. And so I thought like things were going pretty well. And then I didn't have any enemies at the time. I was friends with everybody, including my alliance, obviously. So I didn't see it coming. I would have at that point not seen anybody gunning for him, which is why when I was playing around with the axe and struggling to get it to stick, I didn't have any concerns.
Yeah, you were a part of one of the more shocking moments of Deal or No Deal Island Season 2, probably Deal or No Deal Island history. What was your
Yeah.
experience like watching it back all these months later?
It was the craziest experience of my life, right? Because when you're there and you're filming it, you know what happens, but you don't exactly know how they're going to show it. And so that was pretty, and it makes it really special because like every once in a while, they produce things to kind of make them go a certain way. But whenever I was throwing that X, that was my last throw. Like there was a couple more throws that didn't show in there, and the producers came up to me and were like, "Hey, this is your last chance. If you don't hit this target, you don't get a case." And so the pressure was on. And then Maria Grace, Dr. Will was like, "Hey, you should go talk to him. You should go give him some tips." And so Maria Grace came out there. It was perfect. The showman's thing. She's giving me a quick shoulder rub, said, "You got this. Just don't look at my eyes because they're going to distract you. Beautiful eyes." And then out of every single axe that I threw that day, that was the most perfect axe stick in the entire canvas. I mean, it could not have been better for just reality TV show in general history. So it was great.
So you mentioned Will, kind of egging on Maria Grace there. I want to know a little bit more about your relationship with Will because, we've heard a lot from the people that were really not feeling good about him being there. But in last night's episode, we see you kind of strategizing with him. Was this just out of, convenience because he was the one with power, or did you have any intentions of working long term with Dr. Will?
Definitely had intentions with working long term with Dr. Will. I mean, I didn't even really put him as my highest threat. We weren't necessarily in an alliance, but he was sleeping in our dome. So we had like our group had a lot more time to talk with him about things. And I think that gave us just a little bit more of a leg up of trust. And so he wanted to come to us, figure out what he wanted to do, and then kind of go talk to other people. I worked with him for that moment, right? Maybe we're in the same alliance, but our common enemies aligned. Neither of us were super fond of CK, so we had a common enemy, which kind of meant we were going to be working together that day, and I gave him an idea and he liked it. So yeah, that was probably going to begin the a great alliance and duo and relationship between us, but unfortunately, the line sided that later that night.
Yeah. Jenny wanted to know about your relationship with Dr. Will, but Storm, I have to ask about this relationship with Maria Grace. This showmance, everyone's talking about it. Do you think this was bad for your game ultimately?
I've been asked it a couple times, and I really don't think it was because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, my alliance is going to think, and generally it was true. I was probably just as loyal to them as MG, if not more. My alliance is going to think, okay, this is a great opportunity for him to get information from MG. MG's alliance is probably going to think the same thing, so they're not going to have a big problem with it. Both of us were not exactly stellar in any of the competitions, so it's not like this was some sort of power duo that was just now working together. So I think it kind of gave off a generally innocent thing, like, oh, that's real cute. Look at them going and doing their little breakfast date and giggling with each other, and they were going to be fine with it. And I was hoping that it would just kind of turn into something that people don't really focus on as much because they're like, oh, it's just MG and just Storm. They're just over there doing cute shit. We can focus on the real threats of the game while we just kind of slipped to the very end. So
Hmm.
Uh, so you mentioned Dr. Will was not at the and I know, listen, we'll let Chappell ask more about Maria Grace because I know that he's not done with this. Um, but you said that you didn't rank Dr. Will the highest. And so, discussion about seeing the family as a threat. Obviously, you had a bit of a personal relationship with people in the family, but what was the relationship with like the parental figures of the family and Parvati and David? And did you have any intentions of going after them, or did you see them as just kind of at an arm's length through your personal relationships with MG and Dixon?
So I had conversations with David mostly about this, and then at one point Poverty as well. It wasn't exactly shown on camera, but I was an advocate for physically strong, mentally strong, experienced people because I saw myself as a target for being physically strong. So instead of me looking at these people that are really, really good at the game, David, he's tall, he's strong, he's played Survivor, although we didn't know that at the time. Just in generally looked physically capable. Poverty, who's an experienced player. Dr. Will's an experienced player. Letty, who's just super tall, athletic, smart. I can't say, oh, we need to get them out because they're like a threat, because that's I'm also saying we need to get me out because I'm a threat. And so I tried to spin the narrative and make it seem like they were more of an ally. And so I never really had any true issues with David or Poverty or any of them at the beginning. I was more looking at people that were trying to like snake around and make common enemies for the group so that everybody would be on the same side. And I was going to try to do that week to week to week, just sort of mob mentality until I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, staying on the family, I know you had relationships with Maria Grace, obviously, and the parents. You said you were talking to David, but Dixon is the blind spot, it looks like. What do you think this went wrong? What do you think happened and led to his decision to ultimately take you out of the game?
I've thought about this obviously for a while, and definitely today more so, seeing that the episode aired last night. Um, a lot of the time, I don't really know how much I could have changed, right? Because there's a couple things here. I'm thinking maybe he didn't like that I squatted him in front of everybody. Maybe he was like a little irritated by that. I'm sort of embarrassing him. That's the one thing I can think that I didn't do nice. The true thing I think happened is he went to Temple that night thinking he was going to get rid of CK, and then he won $5 million, was feeling on top of the world, and said, I want to do something big. And so he just blindsided me and shocked, frankly, the world and made a big name for himself. Because I mean, honestly, you guys have your opinions, but in my mind, this is one of the biggest episodes so far. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Storm, would you ever do reality TV again? Like, I feel like you were violently removed from the game this time.
hell yeah, I would do more reality TV. I loved it. I mean, that was the coolest experience of my entire life, and I liked the athletic aspect of it, right? Things like Challenge Survivor. Like I would love to do things like that. But I mean, there's also a showmance, and I kind of liked having a little showmance throughout the show, a little bit of romantic aspect. So there's other shows I'm sure on NBC you guys have heard of, like Love Island and things like that that I wouldn't exactly be opposed to. So yeah, the whole entire TV world is super interesting, and just the way production was set up and the hoopla around it, and it's a really cool deal. So I would absolutely do more TV if they're interested in people that get out for it. So
Storm, you mentioned even in your like bio, obviously the showmance piece was something that you seemed prepared for. But I feel like we're seeing like a gamer starting to develop here. So, if you're looking to do more TV, obviously like the love type shows seem like something that's really well suited to you. But do you feel like you were just kind of starting to get your feet wet with some of this social strategy type gaming? And do you feel like that is actually an area you'd like to get the chance to play something like this again?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like I had a great social game, even with Dixon. I was really good to Dixon, and everybody on the island I was generally friendly with. In the first few episodes, you didn't exactly see me talking to as many people because I was never at risk. I didn't need to go in a lobby for myself to be safe that night, and I didn't want to exactly bug other people or irritate them. So I kind of let other people do their thing, and then that was the first opportunity I had where I could actually like try and do something. Right, I wasn't safe, so I just started to work with Will, realized we had common alignments, realized we wanted common things, and started to kind of work my magic. And I had planned to sort of do that for the entire time, but yeah, unfortunately, it didn't pan out. So I think my social game is definitely one of my stronger aspects, though.
Oh yeah. Seriously.
Amazing.
It was impressive watching you kind of work your way into the middle. I know you said that you play other games, you mentioned Survivor, but then you mentioned Love Island, and I'm thinking, Storm, we already have a showmance. What's the status between you and
Uh,
Maria Grace as of right now?
I mean, I can bring Maria Grace with me in some
There you
seasons.
go. Look
I think
at
I've
that.
had things like that before. I mean, that was the first thing I thought of course.
Hmm.
But without revealing too much, right? Because I want Maria Grace to speak for herself. I may or may not have visited her in LA where she just moved. She may or may not be coming to visit me in Austin here pretty soon. So you'll just have to wait and see.
Hey, love that.
Definitely
Love
still
that.
in contact.
Yeah. Jenny, you have any more questions?
No, I just I hope you had a really great experience and going out the way you did is like a big blindside, someone who is super in like a great spot. It's got to be a compliment in a way. So I just love to know if you feel really good about the experience in the game you played.
It was the most amazing experience of my life, right? Like, I don't have an issue with the game that I played. I think that if it was a longer period of time I was there, my game would have made more sense. If I'd known I was leaving on episode 4, I may would have tried to do a little bit more in the first few episodes, but no, I don't have any regrets. I'm not regretful that Dixon won. That looked through his eyes like one of the most crazy moments of his entire life. So I'm really happy he got to experience that. And just that I was a part of the whole thing in general.
Storm, what else are you working on these days? Where can people find you? Where can they follow you on social media if they want to keep up with you?
Yeah, my Instagram is storm_Wilson, STRM_WILSON. And then my TikTok's the same thing, except there's a zero at the end. Doing the boats on the weekends, working on a little bit of digital content now, trying to kind of get into the social fitness influencer world. Somebody told me the other day that you should just start filming yourself doing these. Like, I think people would like to see it. And so that's what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. And hopefully, maybe something comes from that. But yeah, that's it for now.
All right. I'm sure you'll get a lot of followers. I'm sure people are going to come from there. You're magnetic, man. People are going to follow you off a cliff and hopefully to other reality shows and other ventures moving forward. But it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Absolute pleasure talking to you all as well. Thank you guys so
Thanks.
much.
No problem. All right, everyone. That was Storm, the most recently eliminated contestant from Deal or No Deal Island Season 2. To keep up with more coverage of our Deal or No Deal Island content, please remember to subscribe to We Know Dondi podcast feed for weekly episode recaps and more on WeKnowRealityTV.com. Peace.